Hello and welcome to another episode of Addicted to Business. One of the biggest challenges within business today is finding new business. And today we're joined by a new business specialist over from Great Matters. Really delighted to have you on, Adam. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nathan. Great to be here.
And as always, I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host and good friend, Mr. Stokely Howard.
Hello, guys. Thanks for coming, Adam.
Thanks.
So, Adam, jumping straight in, the Great Matters story is a fascinating one. It's been an amazing journey and I've just been watching from the outside. But for those that maybe haven't heard of Great Matters, please just tell us a little bit more about your story and how it all started.
Yeah, sure. So my background has been in business development for agencies for the past 15 years. And, throughout that time period, we've seen a number of new business agencies and worked with them. And, we've listened to the frustrations of agency owners. And what grew apparent is that I was going through and speaking to so many agency owners, and there wasn't one that hadn't been burnt by some sort of new business agency, or they said it didn't work, or they flitted between one thing to another thing. And ultimately, there was a fundamental problem there, which still exists in the industry today, about how business development is done. And what I realized that it wasn't so much the new business agency's fault, and it wasn't necessarily the agency's fault. It was somewhere in between, and nobody was fixing the real problems that were going on within that. So we sort of took a different approach to that with Great Matters, and we thought, right, let's fix the real problem. Let's get in amongst the business leaders. Let's talk to them and find out what their story is, what their challenges are, what they're strong at. Let's analyze their case studies, their work, and spend a lot of time doing that so that we can actually create a really, really good, authentic, differentiating proposition for them. And then when we did that, that then led on to interesting content ideas. That then led on to having an opinion, and therefore you can start to generate sales leads and have decent conversations with prospects. And all that was happening before was that, junior sort of inexperienced cold callers were working on behalf of agency owners who didn't know how to hire new business people, didn't have a proposition in place, didn't respect new business, didn't understand what was involved in new business, and just expecting results to come. And when they didn't come, they went, that's not your fault, that's not on me, you're fired. And it just went on and on and on for years and years and years. And we still see it today. So I guess the whole proposition of Great Matters was to empower and mentor agencies to be better at new business, to actually almost be that sort of outsourced in-house model where we go in, we fix the problem forever and build that foundation for growth so that when we step away, they get it and they can actually, be consistent in business development.
And so were you at university and kind of what happened from kind of leaving school up until get you to this point?
So, yeah, so it was a weird one. So my background was in sort of graphic design. So actually I studied in Leeds doing sort of visual communications and marketing. Always loved graphics, but probably fucked about at uni a little bit too much and didn't really have the grades that I should have done. Yeah. And then when I came out of uni, I came into recruitment randomly because a friend had it, sounded like good money. And that was my first introduction into the world of sales. And it was very important in the sales world because you were literally given a phone and a computer and said, right, off you go make money, go make leads, right? And I was like, okay, cool. So did that, realized I was quite good at it. And then in sort of 2008, when the big financial crash happened the first time round, jobs were scarce and it was hard to find work. And I was thinking about graphic design and there was offering salaries of like 16K. And I was thinking, don't really want to go back to that sort of salary. My graphic design book wasn't very great because I messed around at uni too much. So I kind of found a business development consultancy where I could combine my sales skills with my graphic design interest. And that's kind of how it all started for me, selling in the world of advertising and marketing. And basically,
those sales skills, were they something that you kind of picked up as a child and always had? Like, were you one of those kids that were like running around car boot sales and buying and selling stuff? Or was that just something you were born with, or actually did that develop over time?
Yeah, well, I can't definitely answer that, but I think it was something I was born with. I think, inherently my dad always ran his own business. He was quite entrepreneurial, and growing up, seeing him sort of run the show and how to make money, build customers, build relationships. That was what we were always good at, talking to people and fostering those relationships. So, yeah, and I think even as a young kid, there were things where, car boot sales, definitely. I remember I created a business called Mr. Mill Hill, which was the area I lived in, and it was basically converting VHS videos into DVDs. And I used to canvas my whole area with like these little flyers, and I made good money out of that. It was £8 a video. People would come to me with like a box full of videos, and I'd make like 300 quid for like one job. And even on my road, there were like 20 jobs, right? And I used to look at this business, and even now, I still think there are people that do it online, but it's still not been scaled in the right way, because there are thousands, if not millions, of households that are sitting on old VHS videos right now, memories that they can't even watch. Yeah. And I basically like sold them that dream and brought it back to them. So yeah, even as a kid, I was kind of entrepreneurial, trying to find ways to make money and offer value, basically.
Wow. So that's incredible. I don't think I have any VHSs, but
you're alive.
One, I think.
You're young for the demographic I was targeting.
Your christening maybe would be like the only one, possibly.
I might have DVDs though, actually. That there was always a guy. You sound like the guy that I used to have in my street called the DVD man. That you could go around at like after dark and buy DVDs off. So as part of developing a business, as well as upselling and cross selling, new business is always definitely a challenge for agencies and for businesses in general. And especially nowadays, when the competition between agencies and businesses has got even harder. Do you have a blueprint to finding new business? Is there a formula? Is there a model to find new business?
There's not. There is definitely a process. There is a model. That is kind of what we built, a framework that is essentially taking people through that journey. And we keep it simple to work in 3 steps, and it's very recognizable, which is basically work on your positioning, step 1, work on your new business strategy, step 2, and then execute step 3. And obviously, it's not as black and white as that, but I think there's a lot of reasons why business development doesn't work, and it without getting into the weeds, like we have an audit of about 80 questions that we go through with agencies, right, which just shows you how comprehensive it is. And that's analyzing everything from firstly looking at the sort of positioning, and is it differentiating, is it emotionally compelling, is it authentic, does it sell you to your strengths, looking at the work, looking at where money's coming from, looking at the services they offer and profitability on each of those services. Then going into their sales process, where they get leads from, is it inbound, outbound, referral, what are their conversion rates, what are their numbers? Do they even know their numbers? Because that's often a massive problem. Most agents haven't got a clue about their numbers. And then getting into all the marketing tactics, like, content writing, the website, case studies, creds, social media content, all of that wrapped together, and who is helping to manage all of that stuff, who's coordinating it so that's effective.
Is it usually the business owner then, Adam, or is it?
Well, it dentends on the size of the agency we're talking about, really, and agency business development in sort of a big global corporate, because I worked with Omnicom and Dentsu, and when you talk about global agencies, you've got new business teams and there's a different setup. When we're talking about sort of, smaller independent agencies, then we're talking about the business owner. But often, you get to a size where you do hire a business development manager or someone in-house to help coordinate that. But it's important that there's a new business culture created. And often what we see is that business development falls down to the agency owner, and it falls on their shoulders, and it's all their workload and their pressure. And it's unfair and it's unrealistic. And that's a piece we try to look at and educate and say, like, right, you need to build a new business culture so other people contribute and help to foster new business in some way, rather than one guy just, literally out there slogging it all day long to try and lead. And that's often the case. And that person, they build up, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of pressure, they build up resentment to the other agency owners. and you get that tension. Well, I'm looking after the clients. Yeah, well, I'm bringing in all the new business leads. You wouldn't have clients if I didn't do that. And that really happens in every agency.
Adam's a fly on the wall in the office here. This
I know what's going on.
All a little bit too close to home.
Sorry, as I say, I know agencies, right? And you will recognise this in your own lives. I think.
We always, me and my business partner, who's called Adam as well, we always have this argument. Because I'm the one that sells in our business. So there's only 2 of us in ours, but I go, I pay your rent. And he goes, I actually pay your rent. We have this conflicting argument back and forth, but you're very much right about, either incentivizing or using your staff, because they're your best advocates, right? As well as your clients as well.
Well, they can be turned into brand ambassadors. And I think, also, if you think when staff come to work, often they come to work for the client they're working on, right? So if you're working on Adidas, they come in, that's their client. How do I please my client? But often they forget that, it's Trendy Granddadders, Quick Fire that actually pay their salaries. And what about that brand? How am I contributing to the growth of that business? The one that puts a roof over my head and, salary to help me pay my mortgage. And I think people get quite disconnected, and so you need to take them on that journey. You need to show them the overall business objectives. You need to show them the new business strategy and what you're setting out to achieve. You need to help them understand the vision and the mission of the company and what their role is in helping you, achieve that vision. And if you do that, then you get truly sort of, immersed staff that will be motivated beyond just the salary. They'll want to come to work and they'll say, look, how can we do this? We need to grow in these areas, and that's the kind of conversation you want from a member of staff. Not clock in, clock out and just thinking about the clients and that be the end of it. It's an interesting one with the new biz culture side of things.
So Adam, it's no secret. I mean, Quickfire hasn't had a new office. Actually, this is me working from home, and we're all working from home as we start to come out of lockdown. But essentially, businesses have really had to quickly adopt to be able to get through this period. And a lot of new business tactics would have changed. What would you say are a couple of things that you've seen while still working with your clients that you think, when we come out of lockdown, it would be great if they could continue doing that?
Yeah, I think it's the speed and the need to do things, really. And I think
the need for speed. Sorry, I had to do that.
You couldn't help yourself. I just had to come out. A little light bulb on. You go, God, I've heard that. That was like a chimp just behaved like, I've heard that.
I don't know where it came from, but it is that. We're seeing things just launch out of nowhere. So we had a client who hadn't done it. They've been talking about doing events for 2 years, right? And they brought me in just before lockdown, and we're going through their positioning strategy, all the rest of it. And I'm not kidding, from beginning from planning the event to doing the event to launching took, I think, 10 days, right? And you think 2 years they've been struggling with, what should the event be about? Can we do events? No one will come to the events. I don't know about events. Let's not do events. All this shit. And I was like, right, we're just doing events, right? We're just going to do one and see what happens. And they've got great clients anyway, so it's piss easy. I just was like, talk to them, ask them if they'll be on a panel. All jumped in, and we got 80 people signed up in a matter of days. We launched. They had a great piece of content, stuck it on YouTube, used it for social media. And also we had the vice president of marketing procurement for Bayer, for example, who they're now in good conversations with. And it's that is how easy events are. And so I think with lockdown and some of the things, there's more than that. But I just think we saw that, and I just thought they needed to do it, and they realized that they could do it. And obviously, we made that easier for them. But for lots of agency owners, it's not difficult, to create content these days, podcasts, events, things like that. It's more the bravery and the procrastination that people need to get over, as opposed to the actual way of doing things.
And I mean, that doesn't matter if you're agency side or just having a business, right? Not in agency world. You can still run events. As I always say to people, just pull the trigger and stop worrying about, what if this, what if that? At the end of the day, you're going to have to do something. And I've seen so many people create webinars during lockdown and just jump on it. And they've gone, okay, we were wanting to do an event for ages. We haven't. Let's just do a webinar. It's super low cost. It's easy to do. And now we've got the death of webinar. And so now we're looking to do other things as well.
Yeah. And that's what I was sort of mentioning earlier. It's this content like creation is just getting out of control, and obviously it's noisy and it's harder to get cut through. And so I think when that happens, and this is the truth with any new business, right? Because we are in a very saturated market. Most businesses are. You have to go back to your story, and you have to be brave enough to stick to you and do you best, right? You can't just sort of keep jumping on the bandwagon. And I think when you listen to your audience, and when you find what they're truly looking for, when you deal with some real issues, and when you come at it from a place that makes sense for you to come at, so you can build up some momentum and have a brand that's known for something, then I think that gives you the license to create content that is true to you. Otherwise, you sort of just come a bit random, just random content. It just becomes a bit sort of clickbaity and just chucking stuff out there. And you need to know what you stand for and what you don't stand for, and you need to be really clear on that. And when you know what you stand for, you can go, yeah, we can do that content, but let's do it in a quick fire way. Well, let's do it in a trendy granddad way. The problem is people don't know what that way is. You know, what do you mean by my way? What's my way? And that's the problem, because the story isn't there. The true sort of authenticity of what you stand for isn't there, you know, across the board.
So the answer to my next question, I kind of want to know from you, Adam, selfishly, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So prospecting is possibly one of the hardest things and activities you can do for any type of marketing, outbound marketing, whatever it is. How do you go about it?
For myself, my client? Well, I guess about both, right?
Is there a formula? Is there a model you go around prospecting? What's the best way, or is there a best way?
Yeah, so I think with prospecting, yeah, obviously massively important. A lot of people, you know, either don't do any outbound or are trying to go on that journey and try and get themselves into that space. I think the first thing I say is that prospecting in isolation is crap, right? Just someone just emailing or calling on its own it can be effective depending on how good you are on the phone, but you know, in isolation it doesn't work. So firstly, integrate your prospecting into your other marketing activity. Start thinking in campaigns rather than like sporadic, oh, I've got an idea, let's stick it on the blog, right? Rather than that, let's go, right, 3 months, right? How are we going to combine, you know, blogs, events, phone calls, DM, whatever it might be in your repertoire, but how do you combine all 5 of those things to target a specific audience, right? And that brings everything together. And then, I mean, common mistakes I see with prospecting, just generally like literally writing an email and things, is that they try and, you know, chuck the whole kitchen sink at it. So, you know, they just try and get too much across. And less is more all the time. Like literally the fewer the words, like I've had respondents from like 5-word emails, right? And like, and that was from like, I'm talking like CMO Keith Weed at Unilever at the time, like responded to, you know, can you help me? I'm lost. I'm looking to connect to someone who looks after your marketing in the UK. And that was it. And because it was so short, it took him 5 seconds to go, speak to this one. And he copied in his VP of marketing in the UK. And I was like, great, that was good. Like people just think like, oh, I've got to get this in, got to get that in, and you know so that doesn't work. And the other thing is that it's classic, right? Classic sales, and this is mentality, not just prospecting but websites, everything, is that it's all about you in the emails that people put out there, and nobody gives a fuck, right? Everyone's trying to talk about how great they are, how the awards they've won, this, that, and whatever. And yes, it's important you land credibility, right, in an email. But the way I look at emails, right, firstly, you've got to have a hook, right? You've got to have something that grabs their attention, quick, short, interesting. Then I always go with a piece of insight. And this is where people fall down entirely, because they normally, laziness, they can't be asked, right, is just to do a quick bit of research. Just go to Google News, put in the brand you're talking about, have a flick through the stories, and instantly you'll see, you know, new hires, new divisions, new products, new whatever a new story is. And that's something to jump on, and shows that you've done your research and you've actually understood, you know, what that prospect is going through. And so it's relevant. That's the first thing. So if you're going, right, here's the hook. We know this has happened in your lives and in your world. So therefore, there's either an opportunity or a threat, right? And that's it in a sales email. You either have to go opportunity or threat, okay? Yeah. If it's a threat, it's like your competitors are doing this, the market's doing that. We can help you defend or stop that. Or look at this great opportunity. Could you go after this? Could you go into that market? Could you do this with whatever you're going on? And that's exciting for them, right? Then you back it up with the one line of credibility. We've got proven experience with X, Y, and Z, and we've done it, blah, blah, blah. And then close it. Then it's the close, go straight for the jugular. Do you want to chat? Can we set up a meeting? Have you got time in your diary next week? A lot of people are quite feeble around it and be like, let me know if this is of interest, or don't want to pester you and I'm really sorry. And
maybe you're sometimes free next week at some time.
Go straight in. So I think they're the kind of tips we use for prospecting. LinkedIn, we normally keep the emails even shorter or the messages shorter. But it's all about having, it's doing the research. So it's relevant person, relevant story, being quite targeted with the message, and using content and sort of PR and other things around you to help you, convert those. And then don't give up. A lot of people will send out those emails and then they'll be like, right, done, right? But, you get about like another, 10% people come back to you, normally just because the timing's wrong, or they're too busy, or they missed the email. So we normally suggest to follow them all up, a second time to sort of say, is this of interest? Could we chat? And normally out of that, you get a couple more, and then that's when you leave it. You don't want to drive people mad, and it's important to also know when to back off. And we've all seen plenty of fair share of crap emails and people that just keep persisting, and you're just like, do your research. Like, look at my website. It's not relevant, and you're just doing yourself a disservice. You're actually damaging your brand in that instance.
We've all had emails on LinkedIn. Like we've had loads. Like, hi, Stokely from Trendy Grandad. Do you guys need a video? No.
Well, I get people selling me business development services. I just can't believe it. I can't but this is also my bugbear with the industry. It's like, how shit are business development people when we're selling our own shit services to ourselves? Like, fucking hell. Like, what is going on? It just shows you how far the industry's got to do in educating, and that has a lot to do with automation. But don't get me started on automation. It's like,
I'm loving this, because actually, whether you're an agency or not an agency, there's just so much value that you can take away, and we pride ourselves on this show around practical insight that people can kind of adopt from today. So this is excellent. So the next thing I want to talk about is positioning, because again, we've got a bit of a reputation of asking too much and just getting loads and loads of value. So tell me if I'm asking too much and giving away all your secrets from Grey Matters. But positioning is where so many businesses fall down, right? Because they maybe start with some fairly sensible positioning of where they do, what they are, and who they stand for. And then all of a sudden it just falls apart as the business evolves and it doesn't keep up. Yeah. So if someone's looking to reposition their business as of today, where do you start? Apart from hiring Grey Matters and then going on that journey, that's one way. How else would you start?
Oh, that's a tough one then. So the first place to start is some really deep introspective questions with the business owners, right? And getting them to sit around a table. And this is why it's sometimes very hard to do it just yourselves, and why external help can be helpful, because depending on how long you've worked together, whether it's friendships, whether it's, you've been in each other's lives for so long, it's very hard to start asking some really deep questions, either questions that you don't know the question to ask, or you don't want to hear the answer, or, that's going to rile the other person up and you don't have someone there to mediate or actually explain, why that question's being asked. But it's got to be the first place to start. It's got to be, right, where are we going here? What the hell are we doing? Why are we on this journey? What's the end goal, right? And it's got to be more than money, right? And that's the problem. If it's just about money, that's where you really struggle to find a positioning. That's where you struggle to attract prospects, talent, go on a journey. I think people need to sort of, we're Simon Sinek fans, so we'll talk about the why and things like that, and trying to sort of get to the heart of, your why, or what's important to you in your world, what matters to you, thinking about who's inspired you on your journey, what wrongs are you trying to right, what things, mean a lot to you. And I think that's the first place to start. And that's kind of digging more into kind of the emotional things behind an agency. We do things like 360 interviews where we're going to talk to clients, we're going to talk to employees. And that's a really important part of the puzzle here, because it's one thing the agency owner's thinking, oh, we want to be that, and we're great at this, and we stand for that. But often you can't see the wood from the trees. And, we then do these 360s to kind of get a picture of, well, what is great about you? Why do people buy from you? Why did you appoint this agency in the first place? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their values? And we'll get that from a group of people. And it's really once we start looking at all that data, trends start to emerge. I guess the next thing we do is kind of moving more into the rational side of a positioning, which is around the agency's work and looking at the case studies. So we've got various tools to help us do this, where we analyze all their not all their case studies, but sort of 10 to 15, and we sort of have about 20 different criteria that we analyze that case study on. And again, what we're looking for is trends. We're looking to identify what the strengths of that agency are, what they're good at fixing, what challenges they solve, the types of businesses they work well with, the types of people they work well with within those businesses. And once we sort of build that, we can then build a whole narrative around that agency. So now we've got the why and the values and the tone of voice and the mission. We've then got the what they do. We've got the who they do it for, so the audience that we can build out. And when you build that all together, the why, what, how, and who, and you package that, that's a proposition. That's a strong proposition. And if you look at most agencies' websites and you analyze them and score them on those criteria, most of them only hit the what, right? And even that is quite poor. It's done on services. So, we do SEO, we build websites, we do video, right? And you haven't got the why, you haven't got the how, and you haven't got the who. So already you're sort of, you'd score like 25%, if that, in our kind of matrix, if you like. And that's that's basically how we get people to get to a better positioning. It's got to be more emotional.
On that, do you find that a lot of brands at the moment are going for that ethical, sustainable, kind of environmental play as their kind of forefront because it's trendy? And I say that in inverted commas because actually, of course, it's really important. I absolutely acknowledge that. But it seems a lot of businesses aren't doing it because they really believe in it and back it. They're doing it because it's trendy and they want to get on that curve.
Yeah, it's tough. You sort of, there does tend to be, no matter where you get to, a couple of trends of agencies that just exist. One is like, we want to be ethical, sustainable, work with brands and do good and put purpose at the heart of everything and, change the world, right? And then you get the other types of agencies where, creativity is shit, it's all boring, we want to disrupt the status quo, we want to change the world, we're disruptive, we want to work with challenger brands, right? And they are two very common, positioning areas. And I guess there's nothing wrong with either of those, but what I think lacks is that, firstly, you've got to find your own take on it. So, you can come at something from a slightly different angle and do it your way. And secondly, to your point, there's got to be proof points to it. There's got to be something backing it up. And what's the story? So it's not just, you saying things and words for the sake of it. It's actually understanding, what is, how are you giving back? How are you being purpose driven? Show me your case study. Show me the clients you're going after. Because a lot of people say that, but then you look at the work and they're actually taking a work that doesn't fit into that criteria at all. Yeah. So I would question, are those agencies brave enough to actually stand by their proposition and actually qualify clients and prospects in and out dependent on it?
That's the challenge as well, right? There's a difference between sales and marketing, because marketing, you're saying, oh yeah, we only work with X type of brand, but then also you've got lights to keep on and mouths to feed and mortgages to pay. And so you end up saying, oh, we only work with sustainable brands, but then you're working for a petroleum company because you need to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah, and it might be, I think the fair thing with agencies is it's got to be a transition over time because of that reason. So often, if that is the case, you might have to take on work that isn't quite right into your positioning, and you might have to service those clients, but they don't necessarily have to be case studies that you highlight and spotlight on your website. But over time, you have to have, I think, a model to say, like, right, by the end of next year, we're only going to work with these types of business, right? And how are we going to do that over time? Because ultimately, if it keeps creeping back in, and those clients keep coming back, then what happens is that the people who work for you give up hope and belief that you're doing it. You set out this vision, you said that, and it's like, well, you're full of bullshit because you're not doing that. And then they go, well, why should I be motivated to work for you? I'm going to go work for another agency. And you start to get problems down the line with stuff like that if you don't.
That's the bit we haven't really touched upon, right? Is it's really important for clients to know, okay, we buy into this business because they stand for X, but it's also important as the market becomes even more, well, soon I guess we're going to go through a massive period of redundancy and unemployment and things like that as we come out of this. Actually being able to stand for something as a brand will be stand you in better chances with your recruitment as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about having a point of view, really, and polarizing. I think people who sit on the fence and offer kind of a service-orientated business is fine, and you'll pick up leads, but you'll always be commoditized, and you will struggle to grow. You will struggle to reach that next level. The thing that's going to get you to the next level is your point of view, is your opinion, and that's not going to please everybody. So it's about really trying to identify the audience that you want to go after, trying to have a message that really resonates with those people and sticking to it, and knowing that, yeah, you might piss off a few people or you might shut down a bunch of leads, but you're going to attract the right types of people to you. But you can't sit on the fence with this stuff. You can't just sort of plod along and be, a commodity business. If you want to grow, you've got to sort of start thinking, what's our opinion? What do we stand for? And I think people do struggle with that, or they have an opinion, but they struggle to express it because they think it might get rejected or it might not be taken seriously. So there's a lot of kind of psychological fears that happen on this positioning journey, which is why it's not easy to get to. But I guess a lot of the work we do is about trying to instill confidence in people, because actually what you'll find is like on LinkedIn, right? If you just share your opinion, you tend to find like, a couple of people will like it and, or comment on it, and you'll be like, oh, right. Cool. And that's starting to build an audience. They're your people. They're the people that think like you. They're the people you want to work with, right? And it's just about how do you do more of that.
Mm-hmm. So talking about growth and the pandemic slightly on how it's affected the typical sort of, the standard sort of agency growth model, as many agencies have grew, like I'm specifically trying to talk about staff here and taking on staff and working in-house. We see a lot of agencies now who are adopting different models to grow, like having, a skeleton staff or have people working from home or people working part-time or even 0-hour contracts and things like that. Do you think that what's happened in the last few months has changed that? Do you think people will now start to try and grow agencies in-house and have big offices, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all been accelerated, right? It's not changed things that weren't in existence before, in my opinion, but it's certainly accelerated it all. So I think, I've been talking to independent agencies for the past 4 years. And so, even in the last couple of years, we've seen the rise of like these collectives that pop up all over the place, right? And we've seen a couple of different interesting business models from like the Oliver Group. You've got things like Harbour Collective, the Hotsby Collective, all different types of people that are working in this kind of agile, hub and spoke type model, if that's a term that means something to people. And that was happening. I guess what happened with COVID is that everyone looked at it and went, shit, we need to save money. People are working from home, and and sort of how do we fix this problem? So obviously, to save money, they cut back on staff, and they think, well, we don't need all these people. We just need the specialists as and when we need it. And the gig economy has been growing, rapidly and significantly for the last, 5 years or so. And technology is enabling that, because people now can go, well, hold on, I can work anywhere, right? And that was always happening. So people were sort of moving away from London, major cities, to go, oh, I'll work from home, I'll work in the countryside, I can do that. And then COVID just dropped a bomb on that, and everyone went, well, we have to do it. We've got no choice now, right? Everyone has to work from home, and, we have to cut costs everywhere. So I think that trend will continue. I mean, it's a very similar model to even what we adopt at Grey Matters, whereby, we work with a team of freelancers and independents to deliver what we need to deliver. And they like that because they get the flexibility of lifestyle, income, can manage that in and around their own lives. The clients love it because it's a leaner model, so therefore it's cheaper for them, because they don't have to pay fixed retainers, or they can just use what they want when they want it. And again, this is the problem with a lot of other models in the past, where they would like these long fixed retainers, where it'd be like, right, you're locked in 3 to 6 months. It's, you know, $3,000 a month, $6,000 a month, whatever it might be. And that was it. And it was kind of like, well, I don't need that all the time. Or how do you reflect, what if my business suffers in 1 month, or sales go up or sales go down, or things happen? And these businesses weren't really able to adapt to that. And so now I think the sort of more agile model means that, you know, and that creates true partnerships, because as a business suffers or struggles, they can lower their retainers, their rates, and that can be adapted with freelancers, and then it can be picked up again, you know, as they scale or as new activity needs to happen. So does that answer your question, or were you thinking?
No, absolutely does.
But I'm thinking about going for someone's listening today. I'm conscious of time. We've probably got another 5 to 10 minutes or so. We're thinking if someone's listening today and they're going, okay, I'm really buying into what Adam's saying here, agency or not agency, I'm ready to take that next leap forward, but I need to start. And a lot of people need to start with some kind of strategic play behind them, but they don't have a strategy in place, right? They're ready to start, but they're just like, oh, I just don't know where. And back to that procrastination, they go, well, we'll just keep putting it off because we don't know where to start. So for anyone listening that's like, right, I need to start improving our new business efforts, what's the first thing you're going to do?
I mean, if we're not talking about positioning, I mean, that's obviously the first place. And I guess I've already touched on that. So that's like the questions, the talking to your clients, you know, maybe setting up a set of questions that you can go to various people and build up that data, analyze your case studies, and really try and work out what your strengths are. From a sort of sales perspective, the first thing I'd say is a CRM system, right? Put in place a CRM system, no matter how big or small you are. And, you know, all the people that just believe that they can get away with Google Sheets are basically, in my opinion, lacking ambition, right? Because if you think, I've probably had this debate with you once before, right?
Yeah, we have.
But if you think you can get away with a Google Sheet, right, then you've got no idea about how complicated sales can get, right? Because on a Google Sheet, you can maybe manage, 100 prospects. Now, if we're talking about a conversion rate of 1% on reaching out to people, you tell me your 100 prospects on your Google Sheet and your one person, if that's going to deliver the sales for you, Nathan, then, you know, good for you. But like, you know, you scale that up to 200 contacts, 3,000 contacts, right, in a database. And you think, how do you manage that? And not only that, how do you track the data behind that? You know, how do you nurture? How do you keep in touch? How do you know what's going on? And there's so much data sitting behind that will help you, you know, tweak your new business strategy. So if you haven't got a CRM system in place, do so. And we recommend Pipedrive as our sort of go-to for that. And we sort of train people on it and give them sort of the guidance they need. As
an agency focused tool, I guess if you're listening to this and you're not an agency, then perhaps a HubSpot or a Zoho or something like that, or actually Pipedrive still fit for purpose.
I think Zoho's terrible, but you know,
for anyone watching from Zoho, which obviously is loads of people,
not sponsored by Zoho,
pick software and have a look at your competitors because you're miles behind. But yeah, if you needed a more scalable thing, HubSpot, Salesforce, those kind of systems are going to be much more relevant to what you need. It depends on sort of, I guess, the features that are important to you. You know, if you're a small business, you know, and you're basic in terms of sales, you just need a place to store contacts and track leads and things like that. Pipedrive is all you need, and it's cheap. Obviously, from there, there's other models you can put in place. But it'll also, you know, have, you know, the other two tools that we use that are really important is the first one is the KPI tracker. So, you know, I talked about earlier how people don't know their numbers. So start tracking your numbers, right? So how many leads do you get inbound? How many outbound? How many referrals, right? Track it every month, okay? Track the average deal size across the board. So what is your average deal size and what is your conversion rate? The conversion rate, you can do different ones, but pitch to win or proposal to win is an obvious one you have to track. But you can also track like how many meetings with prospects do you have a month? And once you put them into a sheet, you can then start to sort of build your sales funnel, and you'll then understand how many leads you need on a monthly basis to track, and you can work it back and give you a realistic picture. So we track that, and we also track some marketing KPIs. So how many content pieces are you going to write, and how many events are you going to host, how many awards are you going to enter, how many press releases you're going to send out. These are, we talk about lead and lag factors. These are lead factors. Nothing stops you doing this stuff other than you and your procrastination and time management, right? Which you've got to get a hold on. And if you get a hold on that, you can then deliver those. And then lastly, the last tool is the content calendar that we develop for people. So we have and this moves people from being very reactive in new business to being proactive, which is a big part of the problem. Yeah. So it's about looking at the next at least 3 months to 6 months ahead of you and going, what's the plan? What are we doing on the website? What content? What's going in the newsletter? What blogs? What case studies? Build that plan out and start thinking in campaigns and map that. And if you do that, you then start to sort of realize that you don't end up going, shit, what are we going to stick in the newsletter this month? Like, God knows, right? You start to think you're actually planning it ahead, and you can be proactive in that approach.
Right, so we've got about 5 minutes. I think we can squeeze out a tiny bit more value. Right, one question each. Last 2 questions. Stokely, you go one, and then I'll go one, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, I wanna throw this bombshell on you, Adam. So I want to know, in your own business development for Grey Matters, would there have been anything different that you would have done in the last 5 years or so?
Would I have done anything different? I told you I was going to struggle with it.
Of business development.
I think partnerships maybe are hugely important. I think they're sort of underrated in all of new business. So people talk about like a referral strategy. We've got really strong partners now. We're partners with Beamer, we're partners with Pimento. We partner with sort of other agencies in the new business space, PR agencies, various different things. And I think building a network, a bunch of friends, people that you can really build into, and Nathan knows this and is massive, really strong on this as well, and that helps so much, just to be able to build that, like, more referral leads coming into your business, and just sort of because you can't do it alone. And I think at the beginning it kind of felt a bit like me against the world, like I'm trying to build this, and a lot of the time you need to stand on the shoulders of giants, and ultimately when you're a small business, you might need to take leads and business from a bigger business, and that's fine to do that. But, build more of them, build more connections, and know people in and around you. And I think, we sort of started investing in that area probably fairly late on, in terms of where we are. But I think it adds so much value, and it also adds credibility to what you're doing. So you're not just like Adam from Grey Matters, you're, Adam from Grey Matters being introduced by, Holly at Beamer to such and such, or through the Pimento network. And suddenly it's like, you feel a bit more, that you've got that credibility and gravitas around you.
Do that earlier, basically.
Yeah, do that earlier. Really, really look at your, the potential partners in and around you, and build sort of strong relationships with people who could refer you work. Normally it's the same. If you look at your audience, it'll be other businesses that also look to market to that audience. So if you put them at the heart of it, think about complementary businesses that sell to the same audience as you, but don't do the same thing that you do, right? Because otherwise you might just step on each other's toes a little bit.
So final question for me is, if people have liked what they heard, which I hope is everyone, and they've enjoyed the show, where do they find out more about you, Adam? How do they connect, and how can they kind of continue this conversation outside of this show?
Yeah, of course. Well, the website's grey-matters.co, not .com, as it pisses everybody off. We do a lot of events. We've got an event towards the end of this month which is about moving from freelancer to agency, which should be quite interesting. We do another seminar in August, which is about selling your agency, which is with Brain Labs and the ASO company who sold to Jellyfish. So we've got a couple of good content pieces going on with that. We've got a whole new resources section on the website. So all the tools that we use for our clients are now available to purchase on the website, which is just under the resources page. And you can sort of do your own sort of training at your own pace and things like that. And lastly, I think I'll just mention the BD Matters. So BD Matters is a new business development community that we've launched in the last couple of weeks. And that is about, agency BD people coming together to help educate the industry, change the narrative of what it means to be a BD person, really champion the discipline. And we've had, great response. We've got 70 people signed up in the last couple of weeks. And, I think if you're in agency business development or want to find out more or want to put your challenges to an audience who literally live and breathe this stuff, then just, I can reach out to that community for you. So
that's perfect. I think for anyone listening, if you're in agency land, then that is absolute gold dust from start to finish. But even if you're not in agency world and you think, okay, I'm just running a business, I'm selling meat boxes, or I'm just doing something totally different, I'm selling jewelry or underwear, whatever it may be, there is masses of value you can take from that. So don't just think because you're an agency, there aren't things there that you can implement in your business. And a massive, massive thank you for giving up some time to come on today's show. I hope everyone listening has found it useful. Thank you to Stokely, as always, my wonderful co-host, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Bye-bye.